for every day that it's not on a DVD, some DB, you have to figure out what that means, is downloading it illegally on the internet and watching it and calling themselves a real fan. And so they were trying to beat that. They were trying to get it out quick and do it in a way that was economical so people could buy it fast. And unfortunately, doing it that way is really tough because, like, none of us, like Vic lived in California, Travis lived in California, Michael Hagan lived there. There's one that lived in Dallas. Lucy and I live in Houston, or I live in Galveston and she lives in Houston, so that's 5 hours each way for us. Pretty much the majority of the host clubs didn't even live in Dallas. So to get us in and record so fast was kind of a chore in and of itself. So the neat thing about recording it that way is it made it more fun to watch because then it was new to me. Like everything, I remember my lines. Yeah, I can remember, oh yeah, they're eating bananas. I didn't know why that was, you know, like, because the first time in the episode, the dance episode, I didn't see the slip and the kiss and all that because I don't have a line in that part. So I was like, why am I wearing that awful outfit? Why am I eating a banana at a formal dance? And so it all makes sense when you watch it at the end, and that's one of the coolest things about Moran. So, yeah. Who's next, man? There's so many hands with a cool Atari shirt, yes. Okay. No, we try not to do that as little as possible. We try to do that as very little as possible. There's only one show I know we've done that recently, and that's Sengoku Basara, because everybody's in that show. Everybody's in that show. And there's some people like Sam Riegel and Liam O'Brien that are committed to working on projects that don't allow them to leave California. And luckily, it's California. There are plenty of recording studios they could go use, and it would be of quality. So. What they do is they will record because they'll actually do it on an Avid rig. So they're watching the video. The video will be sent forward to them, and they'll record it, and then it'll come back. But there were corrections to be made because there's always rewrites and things like that happen. But we do it as very little as possible because of those things. Because if there's a rewrite or if you have to do something at the last second, it's so much tougher when you have to deal with somebody on a different coast and a different time zone and all that stuff. Senator Nicholas does it a lot. Senator Nicholas has directed episodes of Speed Racer from his hotel room at a con. Like, I've never known anybody that multitasks like Mike Senator Nicholas. But he's the exception. They do that a lot for VO work, like voiceover work. There's a lot of that in patch recordings and ISDN recordings, but for anime, we try to avoid that at all costs. Okay, so what was the other part? Yeah. Well, there's always shows like ghost stories. And that's kind of what that show was. Very little room for... There are some shows, like as an old school fan, I used to take it as sacrilege anytime a single syllable was altered from a show. I now know that's my youth and my stupidity. But, because I work in the industry and I understand why things get changed and whatnot. But there are some shows that you just walk into knowing you can't change a syllable. Shows like Samurai 7. That show has to be perfect. That show has to be absolutely matching the script. The text can't change at all. A show like Evangelion has to stay true to the original. But then you have shows like Coletto Rocket or Nekima, which are built-in fun, which please don't anyone ask me to do Neki's voice because I won't. I'm just letting you know now. It's the only voice I refuse to do because it hurts. There are shows like that you have a little bit of room for interpretation, and then you have that once-in-a-lifetime situation like Ghost Stories, which for those of y'all that don't know what Ghost Stories is, I strongly encourage you to find it. It's a horrible show that came out in Japan a long time ago called Ghost Stories in High School. It was originally intended for a teenage audience, but because of the hokey storyline and because of the time it ended up hitting the airwaves, it was viewed as a children's show. And so nobody cared about it, it got no love, and it really didn't deserve it. But it was a horrible show, and I'm a hardcore fan. It was an awful show. Every baby is not cute, like that's the way it is. So Aniplex couldn't sell this show. They tried to sell it to everybody, and nobody wanted it. And finally, the last time they approached ADV, they're like, look, we know this show is really weird, and you can do whatever you and that was it. What basically our director, Stephen Foster, who is the king of kind of making things his own, basically he said he assembled just an A-list cast for all the leads, and he said, look, you're writing the show. Y'all are writing the show as we go. We're writing the show as we go along, and we can make fun of anybody we want. We can say anything we want. If we want to be NC-17, if we want to be super dirty, we can. If we don't have to. The only thing we couldn't change was the basic storyline, meaning if a ghost was killed by holding hands and chanting around a stump of a tree, that's how we had to kill it. Now the chant could change, because I think one of them turned into like, Katabe, Katabe, take the bucket, Katabe, Katabe, you can suck it. So we got to do fun stuff like that. None of the character names changed, except for my character, because he was Rio originally, and it was obviously an LR problem. He was originally Leo. And then we couldn't change any of the names of the ghosts because they're based on Chinese and Japanese ghost legends. So like Aonajaku had to stay Aonajaku, but everything else was totally free reign. And the thing that I'm pushing for, how many Ghost Stories fans in here? Y'all need to help me on a crazy train here. I'm trying to convince the director of Ghost Stories that we need to redub it every 5 to 10 years. And for those of you that have seen the show know why that's totally feasible. My character is Jewish, and Mel Gibson didn't lose his brain until after we were finished. I had to get my shot at Mel Gibson. We didn't have Sarah Palin, we didn't have Lady Gaga, we didn't have any of those people when we did the original, and that show is one of those shows that is funny because of all the pop culture references. And we even make fun of each other. We make fun of Vic, me, Chris, Monica, Hillary, David Williams, who's here, gets unmercifully beat on. But it ended up being one of those few freak accidents where we really got to do what we wanted, and it's neat because we're credited with writing. The funny thing about that show, and some of us have done writing for other shows, like I did adaptive script writing for Gravion and for some episodes of Dance, but this is very different, like that writing was very different. Well, the cooler thing about that is when we first did this show, when ADV announced that they were doing this, ADV was crucified for it. How dare you? It's funny because people are like, I love the show Ghost Stories in high school. I'm like, then you need to be checked into a home. But there were these otaku that were just against it based on the principle that you should never change it, you should never... The funny thing is, to be hated as bad as we were, we beat Alchemist for Dub of the Year that year. We beat Alchemist and they even called it the little dub that could. Once in a blue moon we get to do that, but it's a few and far between, and you just have to enjoy it and relish in those moments when you get them. But yeah, I really hope. I'm pushing, because like you can do it and make it feasible money-wise. If it was a digital download for maybe $1 an episode or something, I think it would be hysterical. So yeah, every 5 or 10 years, definitely. Yes, in the green, yeah.
When you're making shows, does the audio or the visual come first, and how does that interfere when you're acting?
It's very different from what we do anime-wise than when we do a video game. Like I did this Mushroom Man video game that was done for the Wii, and 2 of the characters that I played were just wireframes. I never even saw what the characters looked like. It was just this giant cactus and this giant eggplant, and it was just a wireframe shape that I should make all these noises to this shape. Whereas when we do anime, everything's done before we get it. Everything's finished. Even in the cases of shows that we've done, which were simulcast, like Shikabane Hime, the animation came to us complete. The only time I've ever worked on something that was probably close to what they do in California when they do original American cartoons is an anime that I worked on called Lady Death. And it was actually produced as a joint effort between Japan and the States. And so I worked, the first 2 things that I did in that show, I worked with what's called keyline animation. How many of y'all seen the Aha Take On Me video? That's so famous. That's keyline animation, just kind of tracing looking stuff. But usually we have everything fully mapped out. It's one of the neat things when I met Ryo Horikawa, the original Vegeta. He told me that many times when they work on a show in Japan, he has worked with his little character reference as a picture pinned on the wall in front of him, and that's it. Like he had no clue what the animation was going to be. So for those guys, it's even tougher because they're just acting out in the open. Like they're going to animate around them. But yeah, we have everything, which is easy because once I have the image and the sound and all that, it's really easy to get into character. Yes. Yes, pointing at your head. No. And that's the weird thing, because the Japanese don't give a crap about the sync at all. Mouths stop moving and people keep talking, and it does not bother a Japanese audience. It's not a problem to them, but American audiences flip out. The sync is not right. And it's weird because it's a catch-22. If we alter a sentence to make it fit into a phrase, then we get accused of destroying the integrity of the sentence, even when something is stupid and is, but we have to make it fit, otherwise it looks like bad Hong Kong cinema. And and everybody knows who that looks like, and so sync is really important. Now, in Texas, we do something that they don't do in California. We use expansion and compression. We will squish a line to make it fit, because, wow, I just got horrible ringing in my ears here. One of the side effects of being a DJ. That requires a studio that was built only for ADR recording. And a lot of times the studios in California double as like music studios and stuff like that. And they don't have the room to do, they don't have enclosed spaces like we do. So if you compress it or expand it, you can hear it. It sounds weird. But we're at least lucky in that we get to do that, which makes our job somewhat easier. But sometimes the animation is just weird. They'll stop talking and then this random flap at the end, and you're like, what do I do there, bird? It's so weird, but you just kind of have to stick to it. Yeah, they compress the audio to make it fit, and that's not us. There are people that I call magicians in this business, and they're our sound engineers, and they do all the magic. They take all the weird, spinning, clicking noises. I used to never care about it, but now that I do this for a living, when I listen to radio DJs, it sounds like they're going. It sounds so gross. We have people remove all of those sounds. There are sounds that you don't even realize that your nose makes while you talk, but once it's amplified through a microphone, it's really ugly. But so they do all that for us, and those are really kind of unsung heroes of recording, because they're the ones who do all the magic. They're the ones who make it sound really good. Yes, with the giant exclamation point. How can I do that?
Have they ever done the opposite? Have they ever looped a bit of the video to give you more time to talk?
No, we don't, because that kind of is sacrilege to anime fans. Anime fans don't believe we should ever touch the original animation. So that's just one of the hard parts about our job. In fact, Uma Thurman even mentions that in the Nausicaa, what do you call it? Commentary. And I'm smart. She mentions that it's so much harder to do this anime thing. She even refers to it kind of like that anime thing, because they can't alter it all. It has to be perfect, and it has to fit right in the mouth and look right and all that. And Peter Fernandez, the original voice of Speed Racer, even said that when he was talking at a show we were at in New York. He's like, this is far harder than any acting you see on any other kind of animation, because we do the secondary and it has to fit. Mike McFarlane calls it data entry acting, because you put the acting in the holes in the mouth. You just put it here's acting here, here's some here. So, but yeah, we don't ever get to mess with the actual animation. And believe it or not, things that you think are insignificant, fans will catch it. Fans will be like, oh, that was reused animation. It's always amazing to me how observant anime fans are and how they'll know if anything is touched. Yes. Yes. Oh, no, over here, I'm sorry.
This is actually very much more of all around.
Uh-huh.
Your episode. Have you ever read manga and thought that it did or did not translate well to anime?
No, because Moriyama kind of changed my opinion about manga versus animation. A lot of people, it's so funny, a lot of people used to bag on the end of Chrome and say it was horrible and it was sacrilegious, it was a horrible insult to the creator of the manga. He wrote the other one. The cool thing is you should want to do both, because they're two very different things. I love manga, but it has no effect on my anime watching at all. I like manga because it fits in my pocket. Yeah.